Good evening, my dear officers.
Good evening, Malay.
Good evening, my lord.
Good evening, my lord.
Welcome and good wishes. Begin with, I thank the Honorable Chief Justice, Honorable Governors of the Academy, the Director of the Academy for giving me this opportunity to share my humble thoughts with you all on this topic related to this act and the law related. As you all know, law is an ocean. Horizons are ever widening. Its depths are unfathomable. Therefore, nobody can claim to be a master of law. We are all students of law. For me, teaching is learning. I consider this opportunity as a privilege and an opportunity to learn this interactive session with you. In this session, we are recapitulating what we know. Of course, we take note of some settled propositions. We also discuss some propositions which are yet to be settled. It may be emphasized that some academic discussions are not to be regarded as complete in the true sense of the term. Every chapter in law is a subject to which a fully equipped expert can devote a lifetime study. Therefore, nobody can claim to be a master of law. Therefore, our task is to recapitulate what we know, to take note of some new propositions, discuss some propositions which are yet to be settled. As you know, there are no straitjacket formulae.
Yes, computer.
One singular material fact, the absence or presence of which makes a world of difference to each case. Therefore, each case ultimately has to be decided on the facts of that particular case and also the law applicable. In this session, I request all of you to make it an interactive session to the extent possible, subject to the limitations. We share knowledge in this interactive session. I'm sure that the knowledge shared opens up new vistas of thinking and gives new dimensions to our thought processes. At the end of the session, let me hope that there will be a valid addition to your knowledge. With this preface, let us start interacting on this subject. I always feel that when we are learning law, any particular branch, it is necessary to read the Ware Act and the other relevant enactments in detail. For example, we are now dealing with NDPS Act. We are supposed to have a telescopic view or a bird's eye view of the law, and this is possible when we read the enactment cover to cover. Similarly, when we are dealing with this law, we may be having some cross reference to other enactments, particularly Criminal Procedure Code. Therefore, we are also supposed to have a bird's eye view of important provisions of the Criminal Procedure Code as well. Coming to enactment, the enactment is divided into chapters. One deals with the preliminary, which includes the definitions. Chapter 2 deals with authorities and officers. Chapter 2A deals with the National Fund for Control of Drug Abuse. Chapter 3 deals with prohibition, control, and regulation. Chapter 4 deals with offenses and penalties, important. Chapter deals with procedure important. Chapter 5A deals with forfeiture of illegally acquired property. Chapter 6 deals with miscellaneous provisions. Apart from this, there are also rules made under the Act and also notifications, circulars, standing instructions and standing orders, which we are required to take note of to the extent possible. Having regard to the topic assigned, let us start with jurisdiction. The jurisdiction aspect may be considered with reference to the measure of sentence or the quantum of punishment, because the offences are broadly divided into two categories under this enactment. One set of offences are punishable with a punishment of 3 years and less. The other set of offences are offences punishable with punishment of more than 3 years. The relevant section, let us see section 36. The section says offences triable by special courts. This section reads more than 3 years may be tried summarily. Therefore, these offences are divided into two categories. If the offence is punishable with a sentence of 3 years or less, the jurisdiction vests with the jurisdictional magistrate and the trial procedure is summary trial. All other offences are to be tried by the special court. Then let us go to 36A, section 1, clause D, which says a special court may, upon perusal of police report of the facts constituting an offence under this act, or upon a complaint made by an officer of the central government or a state government authorized in this behalf, take cognizance of the offence without accused being committed to it for trial. So when a special court is required to take cognizance, no committal is necessary. Cognizance provision is the provision I have read. But so far as the power of cognizance of the magistrate for cases under this act, there is no specific provision in the enactment. Therefore, provision that is to be relied upon is only one Section 190 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. Then comes how the cases are initiated. When the accused is apprehended with the contraband, be it a drug or a substance, and a crime is registered, along with the FIR, after arrest of the accused is forwarded to the magistrate first. So a person accused or suspected is forwarded to a magistrate for authorizing detention. Again, we have to see 6A, 1 clause B reads, where a person accused of or suspected of commission of an offence under this act is forwarded to a magistrate under subsection 2 of subsection 2A of section 167 of the CRPC, the magistrate may authorize the detention of such person in such custody as he thinks fit for a period not exceeding 15 days in the whole, where such magistrate is a judicial magistrate, and 7 days in whole when such magistrate is an executive magistrate, provided that in cases which are triable by special court, where such magistrate considered when such person is as aforesaid, or upon or at any time before the expiry of period of detention authorized by him, that the detention of such person is unnecessary, he shall order such person to be forwarded to the special court having jurisdiction. So, whether the case is triable by a magistrate or a special court, in my view, the first production will be before the jurisdictional magistrate. He will remand by passing a remand order, of course, after complying with the necessary requirements as to whether the requirements as regards arrest are complied with, whether the prima facie case is made out for passing a remand order, remanding the accused to judicial custody. What is important is if the offense is punishable with a sentence of 3 years or less, naturally the case remains with the magistrate. Magistrate will pass further orders of remand and also necessary, if necessary, conduct trial depending upon the final report that may be filed either way. But in so far as the case is triable by a special court, after the first remand, next remand shall be, in my view, by the special court. That is why the practice which our magistrates are adopting nowadays is, in such cases, while passing the first remand order itself, in the remand order itself, they are stating that if further orders are necessary, the police may produce the accused to the special court for necessary orders. That is how some officers are making a mention in the first remand order, insofar as cases which are triable by the special court. This is about remands. Insofar as offences which are covered by section 19, 24, 27, offences involving commercial quantity, the authorization of detention shall not exceed 3 days. Please note the change in the law, not 90. However, special court may extend the period up to 1 year on the report of the public prosecutor indicating progress of the case so far made, also reasons for detention beyond 180 days. Now let us see section 37. The head note of the section says offense and non-bailable. But when we carefully read the section, there is no further in the section about the offenses being non-bailable or bailable. Let us read it carefully. Notwithstanding anything contained in the Code of Criminal Procedure, every offence punishable under this Act shall be cognizable. No person accused of an offence punishable for offences under Section 19, Section 24, or Section 20, and also for offences involving commercial quantity, shall be released on bail on his own bond, or on his own bond, unless the public prosecutor has been given an opportunity to oppose the application for such release, and where the public prosecutor opposes the application, the court is satisfied that there are reasonable grounds for believing that he is not guilty of such offense and that he is not likely to commit any offense while on bail. So there are two limitations insofar as serious offenses are concerned, which are mentioned in the provision which I just now read. Unless the limitations are satisfied, bail cannot be granted by the special court, and therefore it appears negation of bail is the rule and granting bail is an exception. Now that we have come to the aspect of bails, let us examine the aspect of bails arising under the NDPS Act. I already mentioned that magistrate has got jurisdiction to try offences which are punishable up to 3 years and less than 3 years. But all other offences are triable by the special court. Section 37 imposes certain limitations on granting bail. I already mentioned negation is a rule and granting bail is an exception. The authority is State of Kerala versus. Please read para 11. (2020) SCC Online, Supreme Court, page 81. 2020 Supreme Court Cases Online, SC 81. On granting bail insofar as the special court are concerned are stated in the provision. The other limit that there are reasonable grounds for believing that the accused is not guilty of such offense with which he is charged or likely to be charged, and that he is not likely to commit any offense while bail. Both the conditions must be satisfied. Then the question is, what are the reasonable grounds for believing? This is explained in the same decision. stating that the legislative mandate must be adhered to. I am reading an important paragraph. 37 reveals that exercise of power to grant bail is not only subject to the limitations contained under Section 439 of the CRPC, but is also subject to the limitation placed by 37, which commences with a non-obstante clause. The two parts of this in the negative form, prescribing the enlargement of bail to any person accused of commission of an offence under the Act, unless twin conditions are satisfied. The first condition is that the prosecution must be given an opportunity to oppose the application, and the second condition is that the court must be satisfied that there are reasonable grounds for believing that he is not guilty. The expression reasonable grounds means something more than prima facie grounds. Very important. Something more than prima facie grounds. It contemplates substantial probable cause for believing that the accused is not guilty of the alleged offence. The reasonable belief contemplated in the provision requires existence of such facts and circumstances as are sufficient to justify satisfaction that the accused is not guilty of the alleged offence. In the case on hand, the High Court seems to have completely overlooked the underlying object of Section 37, that in addition to the limitations provided under CRPC or any other law for time being in force, regulating the grant of bail, its liberal approach in the matter of bail under the NDPS Act is indeed uncalled for. So the bail order granted by the High Court is set aside by laying down the law. Recently, there is also a decision where, after recording the satisfaction, the Supreme Court granted a bail while explaining Sujit Tiwari versus State of Gujarat. SC page 84. In this case, bail is granted as the Supreme Court found that sufficient case is made out for believing that the case is likely not to end in likely to end in acquittal. Then some questions may arise as to whether any offences are bailable or whether default bail can be granted, and whether anticipatory bail applications can be entertained. If you want interaction, what is your view? Whether any offences are bailable? Let us see. We have already read Section 37 of the NDPS Act. The section shows offences, head note shows offences are cognizable and non-bailable. Please see Section 36C of the Act. The Code of Criminal Procedure is applicable to the provisions as to bails and bonds. So whether any offences are bailable, this question has fallen for consideration before the High Court of Kerala. Matthew versus State of Kerala. (2008) 1 Law Times, page 915. The provision of law relating to the offence considered in that section is, in that definition is section 20, clause B, subclause 2, capital A. It is a punishment. The section deals with punishment for contravention in relation to cannabis plant and cannabis. Small quantity with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 6 months, or with fine which may extend to 10,000 rupees, or with both. So offence is punishable with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 6 months, or fine, or both. There is no special declaration in the NDPS Act to making this offence non-bailable, as we have already read the provision. But the schedule to CRPC is now relevant. Read with sections 4 and 5 of CRPC. Under schedule of CRPC, the last entry part 2, any offence punishable with imprisonment for less than 3 years or with fine only shall be non-cognizable and bailable. As already noted, section 37, though in the head note, the offences are non-bailable is stated, in the body of the section and in the language employed in the provision of law, there is no mention about the offences being non-bailable and bailable. So, reading of the section 37, excluding the head note, clearly shows that there is no specific stipulation in the body of the section. Therefore, there is no provision which makes the present offence a non-bailable one. Section 37 itself says limitations in clause B in addition to limitations under the CRPC. So, going by the language employed in the body of section 37 and the penal provision, the Kerala High Court held that this offence is. So, on an analogy, if we agree with the reasoning in the decision, we can say that certain offences, as per the presidential guidance in this decision, are bailable. As I said, it is a no straitjacket formula. We are only discussing the law in detail, and you can have your own opinion in judicial matters when you are deciding cases as a judge. Here, I would like also to invite your attention to a decision rendered by our former combined Andhra Pradesh High Court. Amarnath Vyas versus State of AP. Amarnath Vyas versus State of AP. 2007 Criminal Law Journal 2025. 7 Criminal Law Journal 2025. It's a case where provisions of Copyright Act were considered on the same aspect. Placing reliance on the language employed, namely imprisonment for a term which may extend up to 3 years, the High Court held would not come squarely within the imprisonment for 3 years and upwards. Therefore, the offence punishable under section 63 of the Act cannot be considered as non-bailable. So, same analogy under another special enactment. I think I am clear. Audible?
Yes, my lord.
So far as default is concerned, the time allowed for investigation, the investigation must be completed and charge sheet must be filed. If the time allowed under law is not sufficient, if the law permits, an application can be filed for extension of time. In this case, for serious offences, the time limit is 180 days. You can fill up the gaps, one of you, so that it will be like an interaction. So if within 180 days only, application for extension must be filed generally for consideration by the special court, and the people must give reasons about the progress so far made in the investigation, and also for detention of the accused or the suspect beyond period of 180 days. Supposing in a given case 180 days period has elapsed, the question is whether the accused is entitled to compulsory. Proviso to subsection 2 of section 167 CRPC applies to cases under NDPS Act or not is the question. I think the issue is no longer resident in view of Union of India and others versus Samisha Rasi and others. (1995) 2 ALT criminal 310. There is no contrary provision in the NDPS Act to exclude the application of the maximum period of custody of the accused during investigation found in section 167 2A of CRPC. There is also a provision in the Act which makes a clear reference to power of magistrate under 167 CRPC, particularly subsection 2 thereof. It's an indication that no part of subsection 2 of section 167 CRPC is inapplicable in such case unless there be any specific provision to the contrary in the NDPS Act. So this conclusion is reinforced, and therefore in the absence of any provision inconsistent therewith in the Act, in the considered view, the bill can be granted. Then we all know the compulsive bail, once the right is exercised, it is an indefeasible right. Is it not? Yes or no?
Lord.
Indefeasible right. I will also refer to you one more decision on this aspect. Rajesh Kumar Paul versus State of Assam, AER 2017, Supreme Court 1948. Mandatory bail. Of course, you have to keep in mind section 36A 4 of the NDPS Act. Suppose take a case after the lapse of the period allowed under law for completing investigation and filing the final report, the accused filed an application default case. Here, some disturbance and you hear me clearly?
Yes, my lord.
Lord.
He exercised his right by filing an application, but subsequently filed before the bail application is disposed of. whether the right gets defeated. Or take a case after the accused exercised his right and filed an application for bail, and later an application is filed after 180 days by the prosecution for extension of time. Whether the right which is accrued to the accused gets defeated, in my considered view, it will not, once accrued, it is an indefeasible right, it will not get defeated. Achipal versus Ramswarup is one case. I'm not readily having the citation, I'm sorry. Achipal versus Ramswarup. The other decision of the year 2010 is Union of India versus Nirala Yadav.
Union of India versus
Nirala Yadav, Nirala. AR 2014 Supreme Court, Criminal Appeal of 2010, AR 2014 Supreme Court 3036. Anticipatory bail, of course, much relevance in view of the stringency of the bail conditions, limitations on granting bail. For academic interest, you may read Teru Maji, T-E-R-U-M-A-J-H-I, Teru Maji versus State of West Bengal. I could not lay my hands on the citation. It's a judgment dated 3/4/2014, full bench of the Calcutta High Court in SR-CR number 1 of 2013. Wherein it was held that there is no bar for granting anticipatory bail for the offence punishable under NDPS Act when the offence punishable is punishable with imprisonment for more than 3 years. For more than 3 years. Then another important decision, which may be less useful for trial court judges. Suspension of sentence in an appeal. Section 389 CRPC, read with Section 32A of NDPS Act. Generally, no suspension. Because all conditions, all limitations would also apply at that stage also. State of Punjab versus Rakesh Kumar. State of Punjab versus Rakesh Kumar. I will give you the criminal appeal number 1512 of 2018. 1512 of 2018, Supreme Court, rendered on 3rd December 2018. In this, the suspension granted by the High Court was vacated and the bail was cancelled. So now we have dealt with jurisdiction, remand, and bails.
one small submission.
Yes.
My lord, in this regarding 90 days and 180 days.
90 days is enhanced to 180 days, is it not?
Yes, my lord. And as this provision is related to only to the extent of section 19, 24, 27A, and for the offences involving commercial quantity.
Yes.
The quantity which is less than commercial and more than small. So obviously the 167 As per 160,
What is the period according to you then?
60 days.
60 days, 90 days. Less than 3 years?
Yes, my
Right
lord.
bill by magistrate?
60 days.
Right bill by magistrate, what is the period?
Is below
60
small
days.
quantity. Below small quantity is triable by magistrate.
Yes.
More than that, 90 days.
Are you clear?
Yes, my lord.
Yes or no? Yes. Yes. Any other doubts on these aspects which are discussed so far?
No, my lord.
Yes. Let's go through certain provisions which are mandatorily to be observed by the investigating officers. Let us take up 42 first. 42 and 40. They relate to power of entry, search and seizure. Is it not? Power of entry, search and seizure.
Yes, my lord, Sachin.
Sections are very lengthy. The questions often come are regarding section 42, whether the requirements therein are mandatory, and if the requirements are not followed, what is the effect on the trial or the seizure? Mandatory compliance section 42. I noticed one decision which will be of very importance in the that it is of academic interest. Union of India versus Bal Mukund. Union of India versus Bal Mukund. 2009 lawsuit. 2009 lawsuit SC 522. Ended by 3 honorable judges of the Supreme Court. Section 42, you may also read at your leisure. I have read it because it's a very lengthy section, reading it, not reading it. If necessary, we will read relevant portions. 42, you find two parts. First is presence of difference between secret information recorded by SHO and information sent to superior officer, immediate superior. 42.2 requires that where an officer takes down information in writing under section 42.1, he shall send a copy thereof to his immediate officer, superior officer. The proviso to section 41 says, unless the officer has reasons to believe that a search warrant or an authorization cannot be obtained without affording the opportunity for escape of the offender, which grounds of his belief have to be recorded. He has to record his belief. Both these parts have to be complied with in a given case. So, in many of the cases, a question may call for consideration as to whether there is breach of grant provision of section 42(1) and section 42(2), and the proviso thereof. The communication must be sent to the superior officer within 72 hours. Now, in contradistinction, section 43 deals with a public place. The head note itself says powers of seizure and arrest in public place. So far as 42 is concerned, it deals with the power of entry, search, seizure, and arrest without warrant or authorization in respect of a contraband kept or concealed in conveyance, enclosed place, and the time of search is sunrise and sunset, in between sunrise and sunset. Now I shall refer to an important decision which is rendered recently. State of Rajasthan versus Jagraj Singh alias Hansa. (2016) Supreme Court cases, volume 11, 687. State of Rajasthan versus Jagraj Singh alias Hans. In this case, the landmark constitution
Page number.
number 687. 2016-11 SCC 687. In this case, the landmark constitution bench judgment of Karnail Singh was referred to with a 2009 8 SCC 539 Karnail Singh case. We will read this decision to understand the clear distinction between 42 and 43. I will tell you in a nutshell what are the facts of the case. One accused was carrying contraband. The SHO received secret information at 8 p.m., that is after sunset, that a particular vehicle would come and pass through a particular place. On receiving the information, he prepared a memo, entered in the Roznama of the police station, and conveyed the information to his circle inspector. Then he went along with his party to the place through which the vehicle is supposed to pass. Then they intercepted the vehicle, which is a jeep. One driver and two persons were sitting, and they told the officer that certain bags were lying in the jeep. Bags were lying in the jeep. Notice was given for search. Search was conducted. 9 bags containing opium powder were recovered from the jeep. The accused had no license. The formalities were followed, namely the bags were weighed and then the samples were collected and a crime was registered, FIR was issued. Ultimately, samples were sent to the FSL and the report was received, and therefore the accused were tried. Now, what is important here is he received the information, recorded it, and sent it to his superior. But the important proviso to subsection 1 of section 42 provides that if such officer has reason to believe, he may carry the search after recording the grounds of belief, whereas no grounds of belief as contemplated were recorded and communicated to the superior. This was the contention of the accused. question is 42 applied, 43 applied because it's a jeep found at a public place. The section 43, which deals with public place, in its explanation says what is a public place. That explanation includes any public conveyance. If the jeep is a public conveyance, 43 would be attracted. If it is a personal vehicle, 42 would stand attracted. Am I clear? Yes. We have to see that under the Motor Vehicles Act, there are certain provisions under section 2, subsection 33, subsection 35 of section 32, section 2, and section 66 of the Motor Vehicles Act. If we go through the provisions of the Motor Vehicles Act, we find various kinds of vehicles: public service vehicle, private vehicle, personal vehicle. So in this case, no evidence was brought on record as to whether it's a public vehicle or a private vehicle. There is no proof at all. And as I already said, the search was conducted after sunset, that is at about 10 o'clock. So what is the non-compliance there? Section 42(1) indicates that any authorized officer can carry out search between sunrise and sunset without warrant or authorization. Please carefully follow. Section 42 that any authorized officer can carry out search between sunrise and sunset without warrant or authorization. The scheme of the law indicates that in the event the search has to be made between sunset and sunrise, that is during night hours, the warrant would be necessary unless the officer has reason to believe that a search warrant or authorization cannot be obtained without affording the opportunity for escape of the offender, which grounds of belief have to be recorded. So in the instant case, I mentioned from the fact, there is no case that any ground for belief as contemplated by the proviso to subsection 1 of 42 or subsection 2 of section 42 was ever recorded and communicated to the superior. Therefore, by drawing a distinction between 42 and 43, private place and public place, and holding that the jeep is a public place because it is not proved for private vehicle, because it is not proved it's a public vehicle, public carrier, or a transport vehicle, the Supreme Court acquitted the accused. So the distinction between 42 and 43 is explained in this decision. Then S.K. Raju versus Abdul Haque. S.K. Raju versus Abdul Haque versus, S.K. Raju alias Abdul Haque versus State of West. S.K. Raju versus Abdul Haque versus State of West Bengal. I give you the criminal appeal number 415 of 2017, rendered on 5th September 2018. In this case also, the distinction between section 42 and 43 was brought out after analyzing both the sections of law. In this case, the vehicle was found to be a public vehicle. Therefore, it is said 43 is attracted, not 42. So this is about violations. Section 42 conditions are mandatory. But of course, when the information is received by the officer concerned, when he is not in a police station and when he is on patrol duty, there may not be any convenience to record the information and intimate the same to the superior officer. Then in such cases, there may not be a complaint at the beginning, but the complaints must be there subsequently, at least after explaining the delay. What is the requirement? The officer on receiving the information of the nature referred in subsection 1 of section 42 from any person had to record it in writing in the register concerned and forthwith send a copy of it to the immediate superior before proceeding to take action in terms of clauses A to D of 42(1). So in this regard, I refer to Karnail Singh and also Abdul Rashid Ibrahim Mansoori, Abdul Rashid Ibrahim Mansoori versus State of Gujarat, 2002 SCC 513, Sajan Abraham versus State of Kerala, 2001 6 SCC 692. In one of these cases, an illustration is given. If any delay may result in the accused escaping or the goods or evidence being destroyed or removed, not recording in writing the information received before initiating action, or non-sending a copy of such information to the official superior forthwith may not be treated as a violation of section 42. But if the information was the police officer was in the police station with sufficient time to take action, and if the police officer fails to record in writing the information received or fails to send a copy thereof to the officer superior, then it will be suspicious circumstances, being a clear violation of section 42 of the Act. Similarly, where the police officer does not record the information at all and does not inform the official superior at all, then also it will be a clear violation of section 42 of the Act. Where there is adequate and substantial complaints of section 42 or not is a question of fact. Subsequently, Rajendra Singh's case has come, 2011 8 SCC, 2011 8 SCC 130. So ultimately, complaints of section 42 is mandatory. This mandatory provision is violated, then it vitiates the conviction and sentence, or if the case has not reached that stage, it vitiates the investigation so far as the seizure of the contraband. Next, let us go to section 50. Section 50 deals with conditions under which search of person shall be conducted. Personal search. Section is a lengthy section. The landmark judgment is a 5-judge judgment in the year 1999. Baldev Singh State of Punjab versus Baldev Singh. In this case, Section 50 was carefully analyzed and the law was laid down. The subsequent decision is Vijay Sinha, Chenduba Jadeja versus Vijay Sinha, Chenduba Jadeja versus State of Gujarat. Only I have taken from India Kanun, there are no citations. Criminal Appeal number 943 2005, Criminal Appeal number 943 of 2005, rendered on 29th October 2010. This is also a judgment rendered by 5 honorable judges of the Supreme Court. Baldev Singh's case. We discussed the law and one more decision, 2018, it was rendered Arif Khan alias Khan versus State of Uttarakhand. Criminal Appeal number 273 2007, rendered on 27th April 2018. All these cases were referred to and a Pandora's box was opened because of the decision of the Delhi High Court in Sumit Rai versus State. Sumit Rai versus State. 2019, 262 volume, Delhi Law Times, 685. You can also find it on SEC Online, 2019 SEC Online, Delhi, 9364. 2019 SEC Online, Delhi, 9364. What happens is the problem comes when a person is apprehended while he was carrying, say, a suitcase or a gunny bag or a handbag or some such thing which he keeps on his body, like gunny bag may be kept on the head, a bag may be put on his shoulder, then a suitcase may be being carried on his in his hand, right hand or left hand. Then whether if the contraband is found in the bag or the gunny bag or the handbag or the suitcase, the requirement of section 50 would stand attracted. Because the officer has a duty to inform the suspect about his right to be searched before a gazetted officer or a magistrate. The suspect may say that he has confidence in the officer and he consents in writing for being searched in the absence of a gazetted officer or a magistrate. The requirement of taking him before a magistrate or a gazetted officer is dispensed with, is waived. Then the search is conducted. That is one aspect. So this is a safeguard for the accused and prevents misuse of the power. It also helps in avoiding harm to innocent persons and minimizes allegations of planting contraband and foisting false case. So this is the law. Naturally, if a bag is being carried separately on the back like a backpack, as a suitcase in the hand, or gunny bag on the head, or another small leather case on the shoulder with a sling, then we cannot say it is a part of the body. The law is clear that in such cases, requirement of 50 need not be complied with. The authority has already quoted is Arif Khan. In this case, seizure of charas is from the body of the person but in the evidence, the prosecution neither suggested nor proved that the search and the recovery was made from the appellant in the presence of either a magistrate or a gazetted officer. Therefore, the case result turned on the said the crucial fact. But then another argument which is being advanced for the trial court is that the search is simultaneous. Person is searched and the bag that person is carrying is also searched. Then, because it is simultaneous search of both the person as well as the bag the person is carrying on, it is being sought to be contended that section 50 is and that the absence of complaints of such a requirement, the seizure is vitiated. Here we may go back to the decision which I have already mentioned to you. I will read the concluding portion. We also feel that though section 50 gives an option to the empowered officer to take such person either before the nearest gazetted officer or the magistrate, but in order to impart authenticity, transparency, and creditworthiness to the entire proceeding, in the first instance, an endeavor should be to produce the suspect before the nearest magistrate who enjoys more confidence of the common man compared to any other officer. It would only add legitimacy to the search proceedings. It may verily strengthen the prosecution case. So it is now being sought to be contended by placing reliance on these observations that even if the accused says, the suspect says, he need not be searched before a gazetted officer or a magistrate, yet it is mandatory to take him before a magistrate or the gazetted officer. Also being sought to be contended because the search is simultaneous. 50 requirements have to be fulfilled. Taking a clue from what I mentioned from the decision just now I have read, the Delhi High Court in the decision of Tumsi Rai held that taking before a magistrate, gazetted officer, Gazette officer or a magistrate, though not required by the statute, is mandatory. The Delhi High Court also referred to versus State of MP 2007 1 SCC 450, State of Rajasthan versus Parmanand 2014 5 SCC 345. But my humble view, subject to what you all say, that if the accused is carrying a bag on his shoulder or the head or in the hand like a suitcase, it is not a part of his body. So, for searching that bag or the gunny bag which is being carried on the head or any other such material, Section 50 requirement need not be complied with. So, Section 50 is violated by personally searching him. If contraband is found in the bag or the gunny bag which is carrying suitcase, then non-compliance of Section 50 during personal search cannot invalidate the effect of recovery from the bag or the suitcase, the other external bag which he is carrying. I think my view draws support from State of Punjab versus Baljinder Singh, 2019 SCC Online, Supreme Court 1408. State of Punjab versus Baljinder Singh, 2019 SCC Online, Supreme Court 1408. Then I will refer to State of Rajasthan versus Sahiram, 2019 SCC 649. Okay, it will be helpful for you when the question arises as to whether entire seized contraband should be produced before the court. On facts and on application of, and after reading this judgment, my view is entire seized contraband need not be produced. But most importantly, the seizure of material must be proved by other evidence. The seizure of material must be proved by other evidence. And I was referring to Tumsi Roy's case of Delhi High Court, wherein I also mentioned that the Delhi High Court refer to Parmanand's case, I gave the citation also. But my humble view is, I have seen somewhere that Parmanand's case, which the Delhi High Court relied upon, was overruled. It was held to be not good law. I can lay my hands, I will also give that. But the contraband is kept in a small money purse. It is not visible when the person is a suspect is apprehended or intercepted. It is kept in an undergarment. So unless the person is searched, the investigating officer or the officer who is conducting the search of the person cannot lay his hand on that particular container, be it a small box or a money purse or something which can be hidden under the garment. So that small item in which the contraband is kept is inextricably connected with the body. In such cases, maybe rarest of rare cases, the object article containing the contraband is not visible to the naked eye. The person is apprehended and it is kept internally within the undergarment. Then maybe section 50 has to be complied with. These are the important decisions on section 50. Here, what is important is before a defendant is required to take him before a gazetted officer or a magistrate. And is it mandatory? Appears to be still an unsettled question. Appears to be an unsettled question. In view of the concluding lines of the decision, which I have read to you. We have to decide cases depending upon facts of each case and the law applicable. And I have interacted officers from Andhra Pradesh and 2 of state to know the grassroots level work which the investigating officers are doing generally, what are their practices and the practices in court. What is happening is, supposing ganja is being cultivated in huge extent of land, then how to link the accused with the land or the place where the ganja is being grown. I have dealt with these cases about 15 years when I was the Metropolitan Sessions Judge in Visakhapatnam. But subsequently, I have no opportunity to deal with either a case or an appeal. But I, of course, dealt with some bail applications coming under the NDPS Act also, while as a sitting judge of the High Court. In some cases, if the investigating officer is sincere and he was well informed, he is bringing the Tahsildar or the Mandal Revenue Officer into the picture, and then he is asking him to identify the land reference to survey numbers and extent, and he is taking revenue record copies showing the ownership of the land or the possession of the land, and also cultivation accounts, country accounts, pahanis, adangals, showing the nature of the crop that is cultivated and available on the land. That is a good practice. But what happened in Vizag in some cases is, with regard to ownership of the land, where the Tahsildar or the may not be willing to give any certificate certifying the owner is so and so because there is a dispute either in the village or sub judice. Like for example, at the foot of the hill of in Simhachalam, there are as per a GO, the Devasthanam claims the entire area around the foot of the hill as the land of the Devasthanam. The bonsai is found being grown in such areas. The police officer will not get any evidence. So link the place where the bonsai is grown with the suspect is difficult in such case. Anyhow, you have to go by the record, facts of each. So coming to seizure, recovery for a place or premises, some evidence in that the suspect or the accused is the owner or the actual possessor of that building, place or premises. It is very to record a conviction. The relevant decision is Muhammad Alam Khan versus Narcotics Control Bureau and another 1996 scale, volume 2, 276. 1996 scale, volume 2, 276.
Page number, Mela.
276.
Thank you.
About section 50. All of you to read Tumki Raj case of the Delhi High Court for academic interest. Though it does not bind you, you may not agree also with the propositions laid down there, because one of the decisions, Karamchand's case, which was relied upon by the Delhi court, appears to have been overruled, held to be not good law. Then what next? Handling and disposals. It's a gray area. Now 52. Was introduced in the year 89. Disposal of seized narcotic drugs and substances. Some magistrates are sometimes are entertained whether the case property should be produced before them, though the case is to be tried by a special court. The relevant section is section 52. Of persons arrested and article seized. Any officer arresting a person under section 41, section 42 and section 43 or section 44 shall as may be inform him of the grounds of such arrest. Every person arrested and article seized under warrant issued under subsection 1 of section 41 shall be forwarded without unnecessary delay to the magistrate by whom the warrant was issued. Subsection 3. Every person arrested and article seized under subsection 2 of section 41, section 42, section 43 or section 44 shall be forwarded without unnecessary delay to the officer in charge of the nearest police station or the officer empowered under section 53. So in my considered view, the property can be produced before a magistrate, be it a conveyance, whatever it is. Coming to the disposal of the property, let us wait and see what the law says. See what in earlier days, what was the practice? Supposing the accused is apprehended, and after search, after following the requirements, whether of a person or a body or something he is carrying on, or a vehicle or a conveyance, contraband is found, some drug or psychotropic substance is found, then immediately there will be seizure. I would at least two of you in the good olden days, the practice is to draw the samples where on the spot. Please tell me whether the samples are being. Yes or no? Anybody?
Yes, my lord, at the same spot, scene of offense.
So any procedure for drying the samples? How to dry it, how to seal it? Is there a procedure anywhere? You see, accused is to be taken to the nearest police station after the contraband is seized. How the contraband will be preserved till it is taken to the police station, nearest police station? That's a big question. 52A. This is very, very important. Let us read it. The central government may, having regard to its nature, to theft and substitution constraints for various reasons which are stated therein. Prescribe the procedure for disposal of the property. Then subsection 2. Any narcotic drug, psychotropic substance has been seized and forwarded to the officer in charge of the nearest police station or to the officer empowered under section 53. The officer referred to in subsection shall one prepare of such narcotic drugs, psychotropic substances, controlled substance, conveyance containing such details relating to their description, quality, quantity, mode of tracking, marks are such as identifying particulars are the narcotic drugs, psychotropic substances, controlled substances or conveyances, or the packing in which they are packed, country of origin, other particulars as the officer referred to in subsection B may consider relevant to the identity of the narcotic drugs, psychotropic substances, controlled substances or conveyances in any proceeding under and an application to any magistrate. So after apprehending the accused and seizing the material, the officer mentioned in subsection 1 is bringing him and forwarding the seized material and the suspect to the officer in charge of the nearest police station. Suppose, if, for example, in a village between Medchal and Rangareddy, the suspect is found with the contraband. After seizure only, he is being forwarded to the nearest police station. The section is silent as to whether how the seized must, how it should be sealed. Then, of course, he is brought to the police station. Then an inventory. After the inventory only, the application is to be made to the magistrate. Please read the section carefully. After the inventory, and what the application says to the magistrate, certify the correctness of the inventory so prepared. Certify the correctness of the inventory so prepared. Next, taking in the presence of such magistrate photograph and certifying such representative samples of such drugs or substances in the presence of magistrate. So the contraband is seized and brought in the police station, and an inventory is made. And how the inventory is to be made in the presence of witnesses, and whether they are independent witnesses, nothing is stated here. So what is the value of that inventory? After the inventory is done, a request is made to the magistrate to correct the inventory. Right or wrong, if the inventory report contains the material which is there physically, then nothing wrong in certifying the correctness of the inventory. Whether the inventory is properly done, whether it is acceptable or not in a court of law, that's a different matter. The second aspect is some photographs will be taken. If the photograph is with the physical stuff, the magistrate will certify them to be true. Please tell me if audio is not coming. Coming or
My audio is good, my lord.
some people are getting the audio. So we will temporarily please give us 5 minutes time. Some people are not getting the audio, it appears, some officers.